Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. I'm your host, Mr. Kurt Wuckert Jr. We are live from sunny South Florida. The show is completely produced out of South Florida with our super secret Mr. Producer, enjoying the heat and the rain, and holy cow, it's a Florida summer, everybody. So send love, send prayers. We're pretty hot out here. Everybody, super good to have you. If you are watching live, please like, subscribe, and hit the alert bell. We need to let our digital overlords know that you do indeed wish to consume our content. You're willing to receive it directly into your brain if necessary. When you tell them you want to do that, then they push me up the algorithm to bless me, I think. Everybody. So anyways, thank you for watching. We are going to take a bunch of questions here from the troll box. I want everybody to prepare themselves mentally, spiritually, intellectually, I guess, for a bit of a longer show. I presume we're going to have, A, we have two guests, both of which have a lot to say, and B, we're going to be talking about a topic that I think a lot of people have questions about. So that being the BSVA in general and Teranode in specific, which I think everybody's pumped about. Before we go there, we need to thank our sponsors. Rock Wallet. Thank you, Rock Wallet, for being our perennial, longtime, and delightful sponsor of the show. For anybody that wants to be keeping self-custody of their BTC, BCH, BSV, Ethereum, stablecoins, and of course, the money stablecoin, the first stablecoin that uses no gas because it's on BSV. You can do that on Rock Wallet. I also want to thank, sorry, I'm had coffee right before the show, and it's like it's sticking in my mouth a little bit here, so I apologize in advance. Live content, everybody. We also have Otherworldly TCG, who is very happy to be sponsoring. I think we're gonna give away like 3 this week because it's been 3 weeks in a row where we've had issues for various reasons. But I was off last week, technically, and we had technical issues last week. And I wanted to apologize to anybody trying to watch live. StreamYard was having a connection issue with YouTube, and so the upload looked like crap and the live stream looked like crap. So many apologies to Dimitri, the Tree Chat folks, who would really like their interview probably to be observed. So we're going to try to re-upload, put it somewhere where people can actually observe the thing, because it was a good discussion and it got a little gobbled up. So apologies, technical difficulties are what they are. Sometimes it's how it goes when we try to do things live. However, this show is going to be excellent because we are prepared. We have prepared ourselves. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about me or my stuff. I wrote an article this week about how 95% of Bitcoiners wanted to end the Fed 10 years ago, and now they'll just want the Fed to keep printing money because they want number to go up, and that works out pretty well for them. But weird bit of cultural incentives. Read my article. It's my pinned post on X, and read all my articles at CoinGeek.com if you can. And let's take a moment to catch our breath. We are going to run the Rock Wallet ad. We're going to be back with the managing director, Oskarsson, and Siggi Oskarsson, the CTO, right after this. So we will be right back. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kurt. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good to have you. So let's. So I've had Siggy on a couple of times. I think a number of people know Siggy. I typically will ask people when it's their first time on their show to tell their Bitcoin story. We've heard Siggy's Bitcoin story, but Aus, you and I have not. Actually, I think we've only maybe met in text a little bit, pretty briefly. I would love to hear your Bitcoin story. Like, what did you think of Bitcoin when you first heard of it, and how has that evolved over time? Let's spend a couple minutes on your the Bitcoin lore, as it were.
Yeah, happy to share that. It's brilliant. So I'm relatively new to the BSV Association and the BSV ecosystem, but obviously we share a last name, Siggy and I, and we also share the same mom and dad. So we have another brother that is in the BSV ecosystem. So actually the three of us, it started back in 2012 or 13, I would say, We used to do a annual ski trip, Hermanitos, we would call it. And in 2013, we did it in Switzerland, where I lived already then and still live. And at the end of the trip, I paid for everything because it's Swiss francs. So we didn't have these fancy currency conversion applications by then. So I paid for everything. And at the end, before dropping off at the airport, they basically said, so shall we pay you back in euro or in Bitcoin? And I'm like, I don't know what Bitcoin is, but sounds cool. So a week went by. I did the exchange for them, and that's how I started in Bitcoin. I never actively worked in it because at the time I was working at a bank in Switzerland, but obviously been on the sidelines through Siggy and Ollie since then, essentially already. Yeah.
Very cool. So it's an interesting way to start, because I think there are two groups. I feel like everybody in BSV has a 2012 or a 2013 origin story, or they're just like a totally corporate blockchain guy. And I feel like there's almost nothing in the middle. Like you get very few people who are not on one of those two camps. So I think it's very easy for us to make the case like, oh, we're the original Bitcoin and all this stuff, because there was this crowd that by the time BSV had kind of split away from everything, they've been Bitcoiners for a long time. And then there's this crowd, typically on the other side of the world, like our typical sort of Swiss and British colleagues have a tendency to be a little newer to the game. But I don't know why that is. I guess I could guess, but what is it like being on your side of the pond, but also being kind of old school Bitcoiners? Is that a little bit of a, like, what's that like around the office or however that is? Do you get people that want to come to you and ask for like old Bitcoin war stories? Or I guess this one can be for either of you.
You take it, Siggy, because I'm relatively fresh. So I think also I've been actively in the ecosystem for like 19 months now. So for me, I don't have the war stories that Siggy or you have, right? So I'll let Siggy handle that one.
Well, I think if I'm honest, most of the war stories will come from people that both of us know, Kurt, and they're not in Switzerland. So no, there is we're in Zug, so that's Crypto Valley, Switzerland, and there's a lot of blockchain companies here. So we sometimes talk to people from other chains, and some of them know us and stay away from us like the plague, and others know us and think it's cool what we're trying to do. But Bitcoin origin stories, I don't think a lot of people are actually focusing on that anymore. I think that lives mostly within us, the people that started 2012, 13. But I don't think I haven't heard that from anybody else.
But to be honest, if you go to conferences, which is something that I've been doing a lot since the beginning of this year, people are really fascinated, because if you mention BSV, they're like, what do you mean? And you really need to explain it to them, and like, oh wow. And you really have like C-level executives that did their masters on Bitcoin and are just hyped when they hear that the big blockers are still around. So that's amazing, and I think that's really important job in creating awareness.
For sure.
I wouldn't know anything about that because he doesn't allow me to go anywhere. I'm locked up in the office. He's in Teranode.
So that's another dynamic. I work with my brother and have worked with my brother on and off for our entire lives. Our parents were self-employed, and so we worked in the family business, and then we both kind of worked tangentially in marketing, and then we both got into Bitcoin around the same time too. And so, we have these eras where we work together and then we'll split off, and then we kind of come back, we're working together again. What is the family dynamic like between you guys? Is it like, hey, this is great, I get to work with my brother who I trust? Or do you get a little bit of the like, this reminds me of that time when we were, 10 and 12 or whatever? And, like, how does that play out for you guys?
Well, Siggy's 9 years older than I am, so we never had that. It's the middle brother where the emotions rile up. No, it's great. It's fantastic. It's like with minimum words and just some eye contact, you get each other. It's a bit also what we try to instill in the association, this purpose-driven organization. We just share the same purpose, and it just makes it so much easier to work together and to work with our team that we have around us, and it's just really nice. Yeah, it's fantastic.
No, I have to echo that. I've actually worked with our other brother Ole for quite some time. We used to work together at a startup that was sold to a corporate that we kept on. So we worked together for 12 years before we split up. and now we're back together, and it was always joy working with him. So no, I've never had any problems working with him. It's actually easier than anything else, just like I was saying, because we just need a couple of words and we know what we mean. It's very efficient.
Yep. No, it's great actually, and that's been my experience too. Like our personal stuff, we'll bicker about totally other things, but like when we work together, it really is. It's like having a second right hand. You don't have to tell it what to do. It's just it's gonna go. So no, that's awesome.
Definitely.
So let's talk a little bit about BSVA. There's been a few managing directors, probably, I don't know, there's been 3 or 4 over the last 4 or 5 years. And kind of each one has its own different face, different goals, different, what the posture of BSVA is going to be. I'm very curious, like, what is your grand vision? Is it currently in, like, are we seeing the grand vision? I always think about, a new president anywhere. So, I mean, we have new president Donald Trump, and it's always a little bit like, all right, is this presidency going to be defined by the first 100 days or the last 100 days or some big other thing? So I'm curious, what's your grand vision, and how much of it can you tell us? How much is maybe super secret, or how excited are you right now with how it's going? I'd love to hear where we're going with this.
So very excited, but I have to do a caveat first off. It's not, there's 2 presidents here. So we have a joint leadership between Siggy and myself, where obviously on paper I'm the managing director, but any managerial things we handle with the 2 of us. So that's awesome. He's more the technical phase and I'm the non-technical phase. Whereas Siggy wants to call it, he does the hard stuff, I do the easy stuff. That's essentially how he calls it. No, I'm very excited. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Obviously, it was a surprise for a lot of people in the BSVA community because they knew the last name to Siggy. Like, who is this guy? I'd been with the BSVA for a year, and I'd basically been meddling in every project. So I worked on Teranode, did the requirements, worked in education, worked with Connor a lot on standards, and so I basically had already done a lot of the things within BSVA. So when the board approached me to take on this role, I was pleasantly surprised. And now what we did essentially, Siggy and I, in December, is we basically took a step back and said, okay, so what is it that the BSV Association needs to do? What is our main purpose? And that's the key thing. We want adoption of BSV blockchain. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you drill that down, essentially? And then you go into, okay, we need to educate around it. We need to create awareness around it. We need to build partnerships with universities, with companies. We need to make it easier for our ecosystem that people can work with them, like commercial opportunities for them. Build out the tech stack and just make it easier for anyone to build on it. And I think there's a lot of things going on. And in the first couple of months, we've really sort of almost internalized, and we've got some criticism for not being outspoken enough online, and that's fair. So we were really working on setting the foundations. And now sort of, I think, end of June, when we had this new brand relaunch, and we had for the association itself, right? And then we have the Teranode public release. Now we're sort of unleashed. So no, you haven't seen the grand vision yet. We're working on it, and every day a little bit more will come. And we have a lot of cool things in the pipeline and a lot of cool things that we already did. But at least the grand vision, adoption of BSV blockchain, people need to know that this amazing scalable proof of work UTXO blockchain is out there, and that they can work with it. And we have a humble role to play in that, is just by being connectors, building bridges for the ecosystem, building bridges for businesses to start working with us on POCs and getting people to know about it. So we're still very much at the beginning, I would say, from Siggy and my journey at the association.
But can I add one thing? I think he's underplaying it a little bit and being a little bit modest, because when he came in working with Connor on the stewardship stuff, had to deep dive into the protocol and all the intricacies of what was going on there and the blockchain and everything, and did that very, very quickly, wrote all that up and amazed everybody. And then he switched over to actually writing the Teranode requirements for us, because there were no official requirements that we could use to hand over to a QA team or something like that. So that's what we're really after, detailed requirements about exactly what a node should do. And that's being used now by our testing team to test everything in Teranode. And he did that in 6 weeks. That blew my mind, that somebody could just come in and learn all this stuff so quickly. And he's also, all the stuff that he did, just get a very, very broad view of everything that's happening in the association. So I was very pleased and a little bit surprised, very pleased when they asked him to do the job, because I thought it would be great. And he is great. He's doing a great job.
Oh, that's awesome. So speaking of doing a great job, BSVA certainly has its critics, and it's kind of one of those 50-50 things, right? Like, I think the corporate people are like, oh, BSVA looks good, the IBM blue, and people that wear suits, like, I get this. And then you sort of have the other contingent of people who are Bitcoiners who have this like intense negative response to anything that looks authoritative or hierarchical, or any of these things. Like, you're the managing director. Like, I don't need a managing director. So I'm curious if you can speak to the people that by knee jerk just say, ugh, like, what is any of this nonsense? What would you say to the people that just really can't stand the brand or the concept, or maybe even you as people? I find it hard to believe people wouldn't like you as individuals, but we all get bundled into. I get people that call me a BSVA shill, and I'm like, hey man, nobody's telling me from BSVA what I'm supposed to say or do. But you get that, and so I would love to hear from both of you. Like, what might a critic not know about what you're doing organizationally that they might like? Or if you could speak anything to them, I would love to have you guys, or give you the floor to speak directly to your critics.
Yeah, so I think first off,
we build it up. So we start a little bit slower, so maybe a little bit more on the corporate angle, and then I'll take it over after that.
Nice. So I think first off, there's this clear distinction. Like, BSV is a public blockchain, right? Anyone can do whatever they want, and anyone can mine, anyone can build, anyone can use it. Nobody owns it. And I think historically the association has had a very central role played, but anyone can do anything. So for example, even like a person like Roy Murphy building his own node software, that's amazing. And we should encourage that. Like, we should have a lot of people building and trying stuff. And our role is simply to make that easier, to enable that. So for example, and be it through the tech stack that Siggy and Dagan are building, or be it through just educational courses, or we just have our mission is very clear. We want people or businesses and people to adopt BSV blockchain, right? And that's our very humble mission that we want to do, and anyone can contribute to that as well, right? So if we have a lot of cool players in the ecosystem, you look at the Babbages and Mint Blues and yourself in this world. That's amazing, and you don't need the BSVA doing everything, having this central role. We want to make this as successful as possible with you guys, and we're happy to support anyone who wants to make things happen. I think that's for me the key message, right? As well, like, we have a role to play, but everyone has a role to play to make this successful.
Absolutely, and just to add to that is that I'm one of those people that started in 2013 and I'm hardcore Bitcoiner, and I experienced everything in 2014, 15, 16, the block wars, all that nonsense that went on. You should read the book Hijacking Bitcoin. It's actually quite good. It's just missing the last chapter, BSV's Bitcoin. Having said that, I think we have to be realistic, is that we're very far from 2013. A lot has happened in the meantime. And I think I'm always very grateful that there are still people out there that are willing to support us. So in the BSV Association, to do what we were going to do. And we're not here to take over the ecosystem. We're here to support the ecosystem, like Aus says. And through the support that we have at the association, we're able to do things like build Teranode, which is very expensive to do. It's not that expensive to do the software development. Just doing the testing was actually the most expensive part, because you need to have all this hardware and all that just to prove out that it works. And we need to do that continued work. And also the distributed application stack that Dagan is building out with the overlays and the libraries and all that stuff. It's all going to be open source, and everybody can use that. And so it's just to support the ecosystem. And we hope there are people out there that will join us in building the stuff that we're building, the libraries and the overlays and all that stuff. and build on top of it, take it, fork it, do something else with it. That's what we're here for. It's all about getting the chain to be used. It's not about control. It's not about us. It's about supporting the companies in the ecosystem. And every time we have conversations with any of the companies like Gate2Chain or MintBlue or Gorilla Pool or any of these companies, we're here to support them. We're not to compete. We're trying to control. We're just trying to support the ecosystem. I think that's the main message I would like to leave everyone.
So one of the major ways that happens, I still think there's this ethos, like a lot of people want to run their own node. And I mean, I've been telling people that's a bad idea for a decade at this point, and so have many other people, but you still get these people who are like, well, the way I see it, I should be able to run it like X, Y, and Z and whatever. And I actually think people should, again, take the reference client, fork it, do what they want with it, run some light version of it, mess around. You get a lot of people asking questions about like the open BSV license and some of these things as far as software goes. Like, well, can I fork it? Can I, like, you get people that want to bicker kind of about the legalese and the risks on that kind of thing. Definitively, can you say, like, when Teranode is fully public released, can Antpool show up and say, oh, hey, this is really cool. We're gonna fork it. We're gonna use it. We're gonna compete, and and maybe make heavy modifications to it and use it some proprietary derivative of it.
Just as long as they're using the BSV blockchain.
Yeah,
and that's something that I think people misunderstand. That's not a license on the blockchain. That's just a license on the software. If somebody wants to build something else and license that differently, that's absolutely sure. But the investment that's gone into the software, the people that are making that investment have decided, you know what, we don't want the same thing to happen as in 2013 or 2017, 18, that somebody takes this and just for free and do something. We don't want that. Should only be one chain, and this is it, and this is the software that you should be using. So why would you need to fork it onto something else? And that's a choice that's outside our sphere of control, and I'm perfectly happy with that. And I understand that a lot of people that want to do some other things with it will not be happy with that. But like you say, I would, when it is opened up, I totally expect people like yourself with Gorilla Pool to fork it and make some modifications and mine on the BSV with some optimizations and stuff like that. That's absolutely fine. It's perfect.
Yeah, love it. So, we've talked at a little bit of a high level about what BSVA is doing, what the mission is, and that kind of thing. Can we drill into it just a little bit? I always wonder, like, what's going on with exchanges. Liquidity is a big thing. We just had OKX suddenly decide they're going to bail and that kind of thing. And I'm curious, like, what is the internal process? And then also, like, what can the external process be? Because I think a lot of these communities, like, all of a sudden I'll get attacked by like XRP Army or the Caspa people or whatever will show up, and all of a sudden I've just like got 50 people talking to me about Caspa or something, and it's like, I don't know how organic that is exactly, but it is other people. It's not some organizational thing, at least not at the very surface. It might be bots controlled by some entity, but I'm curious, are there ways that the average big blocker can contribute to getting exchanges or other kinds of adoption? Or like, what is BSVA's maybe strategy, or what's actually happening practically at the BSVA to sort of facilitate this adoption and other things?
That's a very good point. And I need a shout out to Vivek, who just joined us in May to actually take over the responsibility for that role. Doing exchanges and listings and having the conversation with market makers, and conversation has been really positive. So if you look at what we want to achieve with exchanges, we want to make it easier for anyone to access BSV, right, all over the world. And then you need to look at exchanges, but you also need to look at ramps. And I know that there was a discussion, or at least some comments last week or 2 weeks ago, about ramp providers and MCC codes, and that's something that we also talked about with Daniel of Lamint. And those are things that we're really looking into, is how can we professionalize and improve the accessibility of BSV. So OKX is very unfortunate. We also never really got a clear response from them. In fact, we were having talks with their marketing team just weeks before on doing co-marketing. But I think it goes back to long-term partnerships as well with these exchanges, for example. Like we don't just want to get a listing and then leave it to be. We really want to make sure, can we do co-marketing with these guys? Can we, again, creating awareness around BSV? It's not about pumping the price, or it's really about awareness in that case and making BSV accessible. So we've got a couple of cool exchanges lined up. We got I can't disclose that. Got a ramp on and off ramp provider lined up. And I think what's also important, we're working very closely with the money guys on all these relationships, right? Because one thing is making BSV accessible, but the other thing is also the money, the stablecoin, because that is potentially has a completely different potential in, say, in developing countries, even, like just to have a low cost, low fee stablecoin. So it's really great that they're around, and we're again here to work with them and support on getting them listed as well. Yeah, hope that answered your question a bit. And what can anyone do? At the end of the day, it's a lot about volume. So a lot of these exchanges are also just business driven. So there will be a lot about volume, and make it clear that you want to get BSV listed on a certain exchange, and reach out, talk to us. Doors open.
Yep. Well, I think that brings up an interesting point, because I think there are, the grassroots of anything. I think the grassroots in BSV are a little bit unsure if they'd be stepping on somebody's toes, or when people talk about like government or corporate adoption. I often on this show will tell people, like, go get a customer. Like, you don't have a business unless you go get a customer. But then I think people will think to themselves, like, well, am I allowed to? I don't want to get in trouble. Like, I don't know what the issue is, but one of you mentioned Mint Blue at some point in the last 10 minutes or so. And I think what they've done, like, they went to the Dutch tax office and they're running a pilot program. They're doing these things, and it's like, they're not a big team. They're, I don't know, 7 or 8 guys are spread out across the Netherlands and Belgium, and out there getting like major EU country to use BSV in their official tax policy stuff, like doing all this tracking. And that's a really good example of guys just hitting the pavement and saying, hey, I'm gonna do a real business. But I do think that, and I get people, like, you'd be shocked if you saw my DMs, truly, but people will ask me, hey, what is BSVA doing, or what is Enchain doing, or what is, and like, they just start picking out people they see as like leadership. Like, what are they doing to get clients at this company or this level or in this industry or this vertical? And I don't know kind of what to do with that information when people say, I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not their boss. I don't know what anybody's doing on their private biz dev, but I think there's a little confusion about BSVA as an industry association and that kind of thing relative to what our company's doing to onboard like corporate and government clients and stuff, because there is this brand initiative about BSV being the corporate and government, like, scalable blockchain. And then I think people hear that and say, man, I don't know how business deals are done between a company like HP and IBM and, pick a Fortune 500 company. I think people just feel unqualified to participate in that sandbox at all. So I guess if you could walk me through a little bit, like, what is BSVA's role in that kind of business stuff? Like, if people say, like, hey, I have an opportunity to submit an RFP to like my county government or this big company, is that something BSVA has resources or templates or something to help with? Like, how can those things interface, basically?
So that's actually a key point and a key activity what we do, and this resonates really well with us. Like, we again, when we took the step back, what is it that we can do? And I think there's 2 aspects that we need to consider. And if you look at Mint Blue, why they're so successful is they put the customer first. They don't mention BSV until on page 3. They put really, what is the customer's problem? What are they facing? How can we solve it? And then blockchain just happened to be part of the solution. And then BSV is the best scalable, cheapest blockchain, right? So that's the one aspect, is they're putting the customer first, which I think is really, really important, because we, in general, as a blockchain industry, a lot of focus has been on technology first, but technology has been around for, say, 16 years now. we need to start really thinking of what problems does it solve, right? So in which sectors. I think that's the first one. And the second one is one thing that Siggy and I initiated, which is going really well under Mo's lead, is POCs. So we're non-profit, right? So we will never meddle with anything or try to cannibalize any commercial opportunities of companies in the ecosystem that want to build. But we're, again, here to support. So if businesses need support on integrating into blockchain, they maybe have heard of blockchain but don't know how it works, or they are already working with another blockchain, say Hyperledger and Ethereum, but it just isn't working for them. So we will work on a non-commercial POC, building under Degen, building demo applications, showing how it works. And we've got a couple really nice ones in the pipeline. Maybe I can briefly intro them, and then Siggy, you can give some more details so I don't hog the mic. But we've got a company in Uganda that is doing carbon offsetting, and we've got some other things. We've got a potential healthcare a POC in Argentina, potential identity, digital wills, file storage. There's so much opportunity. Even now in the UK, you see this new law popped in where people need to provide their identification to log into certain 18 plus websites. We now started a POC on that, how you can do that on blockchain or on BSV rather than, and that's where we really come in. So helping businesses. So if people have an idea for a POC and they're struggling or they need support, they can always reach out to us, and we'll assess it and see how we can support, even if they have nothing. So one cool thing, and then I'm giving it to Siggy because I do want to highlight this one. So for example, the healthcare one, it's a reference application that is now available. I did a lecture at the University of Zurich 3 weeks ago by now, and they had to do a final project. So one of the students was from Peru. He had never heard of BSV until we did that lecture. He was like, okay, this is interesting. He asked for our support. Within 2 days, he basically converted that demo application for healthcare prescription on chain to a traceability solution for medicine in Peru. And he's now going to finish working on that. And that's the beauty of it. We have these reference applications that are open to anyone. You can pick them up. You can start commercializing them if you want, because we would never do that. And in a matter of days, you have a new application running if you just have the right idea and a bit of support from us where we can help. Because again, it goes back to we want traction on BSV. So Siggy, I'll give the mic to you. You can go into some more details on some of these things, but I didn't want to miss this one.
No, so let's just take one step back, and if you make you're very good. If what we're that's an inside joke. We can tell you later, Kurt. If you want a metaphor for what we are in another industry, then we would be the Linux Foundation, and everybody else is Red Hats. So we're building open source software. We're supporting the chain, but we're actually not in control. We're not in control of the chain. We're not in control of everything. We're just supporting the ecosystem. And what we need is the Red Hats that are going to build applications. Or not even that. If you want to set up your own website or your mailing host server, you want to start a company, you don't go ask the Linux Foundation for permission if you're allowed to do that or not. You just install Linux and you use it. And that's exactly how it should be here. You just, get some BSV, start making transactions. Nobody's going to stop you. Nobody's going to stop you at all. You don't need our permission to do that. And I think the thing that kind of messed everybody up, the idea is messed up, was that there's value attached to it. There's a token that has gotten value. Ours is not very valuable, which you could look at as a gift because it's very cheap to do transactions on chain. So you have an opportunity now to start your business at a very, very low cost because the transactions are so cheap. And when it's going to go up, the price of the transactions is going to go up, to a little harder. Just a way of spinning that the price is low. But because of that, because we have this value and everybody's talking about number go up and crypto and all that stuff, we're looking at other people to help us. But that's not how businesses work. This is just a tool. This is an infrastructural thing. This is supposed to be a commodity, a utility, and there's a token involved that is needed to pay for the transactions. But if you don't have a viable business idea, there's nothing a blockchain is going to do to help with that. And if you do have a viable business idea that is can be built on blockchain, there's still a lot of hard work involved, just like you would have in any startup, and you need to get money. We are not funding stuff. That is actually one of our handicaps. I don't think it should be that way, but you see it on other chains, is that they're paying a lot of money for companies to do or people to do projects on their chains. The dirty secret of that is that they throw some money at these projects, people take the money, build the projects, and then leave, and there's nothing left over. There's nothing serious about that. So it looks all great. We don't want to mention any names, but you know all the big blockchains. It looks great, but there's nothing really happening there. We're still looking for that killer application. And when that killer application comes, there's only one blockchain that can support it. The rest of them will all fall over. Yep. So this is the hard thing about what we're doing. It's the long game. We're playing the long game here because we know what the vision is. We know what the long-term thing is. We know where it's going to go, but we're just way behind now, and everybody hates us. But you know what? Who cares? That's an opportunity to actually take the technology and do something with it while other people are looking the other way. And then when they figure out, hey, you know what? We have these people in our ecosystem now that used to be on other blockchains, and they almost gave up.
Yep.
And now they're coming to us, and these projects will be launched later this year or beginning of next year. They came to us, and they were just, their mind was blown. There's a blockchain that's cheap and fast and scalable, and this is amazing. Why didn't I know about this? So I think it's actually much more that than anything else. There's just need to be a lot more education. We need to talk to a lot more people. We need to educate. And the people in the crypto bubble that hate us because of the history, you know what? The world doesn't care about that. That's like 0.1% of the population, and the rest of the people, they don't care about that at all.
That's funny because it's been my experience. Like most of the people that I work with, they did come from ETH or from some other place where they had a cool app idea or whatever. And then there's that flip side of people who, have worked in corporate and had at some point over the last 5 years had some kind of a module for looking into blockchain, and were told by some consultant somewhere either to go the ETH direction or to go like either Hyperledger or R3 Corda or something along those lines. And neither of them worked. And so they wasted a bunch of money and then are just convinced that blockchains were a dumb idea.
Exactly.
And so I'm curious, what do you think is the best way to wrangle that back? It's like we have to do a lot of uneducation or diseducation. I don't even know what you would call it, like untangle the nonsense and then bring them back to, hey, we know the other blockchains don't work, but ours is actually the older one. But like it's a little bit of a convoluted message, but it's so powerful that once you actually see it, like you kind of, I see people's light bulbs go off, and when they see it work, they're like, oh, wow, okay, this does work. I remember thinking this was cool 5 years ago, but had to quit on it because nobody had done this yet. Does BSVA have like a track for doing that kind of thing? Like reaching out to perhaps old partners or people that have sunset their relationship with Hyperledger or other people? Because that might be some pretty ripe fruit to go pick.
Absolutely. That's actually the major reason why we go to conferences and go to these types of events, right? Is because there's so many people out there with either blockchain ideas or failed projects or just haven't been able to start yet, and they may be hesitant. And what you see nowadays as well is the number of people that are still interested in blockchain has diminished because AI has overtaken. You see it if you do a hackathon, 90% of the people will go to AI, and maybe 5%, if you're lucky, stick on blockchain.
Yep.
But there's still a lot, and we have limited resources. Like we're a team of 20 people, more or less, so we can only do so much. But we have companies in Spain that are working with Hyperledger and are fed up, and we just want to show that it works. And I think that's also the real value in these POCs and these case studies, or whatever you want to call them. It's people know about blockchain, or they think they know about blockchain, and they've lived the experience, and they have a negative experience, so they've given up. So it doesn't help going with a PowerPoint and saying this blockchain is the best in its skills. You need to prove it. You need to show it that it works. And that's why Siggy and his team are working together with these to actually show how easy it is, and that it really works, and that maybe the barrier to entry may still be a bit higher at the moment, but that barrier we're actually trying to lower by just making these reference applications, etc. So absolutely, it's I would say almost one of the main goals is really moving away from the PowerPoint, how awesome blockchain is, and really having real case studies to show how awesome blockchain is and how it can really change the world, right?
But just to fill into that, I mean, any good business will have a multifaceted approach. You're not just technology. You also have to marketing and operations and finance, and you have to have everything in balance, right? It's the old business balance scorecard that maybe some people might have read about in a business book and forgot about. But we're doing the same thing in this area. We're attacking all these things. We're doing all these things. We're trying to education, marketing, the public outreach, private outreach, and so we're doing that. But next to that, in the technology team, which I think is about half now of the association, it's just about, like Asgeir says, is proving it. We just need to do it. So any company that wants to do something, we will help them do that. We will make sure that they're actually doing it correctly and they get up to speed. Because I believe that the next thing that the thing that will actually convince these people is that there's a massive application with millions of users working properly on the blockchain without problems, and then they go, hey, wait a minute, I thought blockchain didn't work. And then we have something. But just like Asgeir says, the PowerPoints and everything, that's not going to convince everything. We need to build real applications.
Yeah.
So if any of you out there have ideas and you want some help, we're not going to give away development work, but we will tell you how to do it, but open source that so your competitor will also be able to see that. So everything we're doing is about being open source. So all the demo applications and the POCs, the proof of concepts, I thought somebody asked that in the chat, it's proof of concepts that we are creating, we are putting up on our GitHub and open sourcing. There's going to be a special repo for all of them. So we're going to be documenting all of them and showing all that. And it's basically just to show people how to do a certain thing. How do you do payments on your, I think the last one we're working on now, how would you do a private token in your web application that has value, that people can exchange, but it's a private token. So it's almost like a private money, M&E. Or how would you want to timestamp data on the chain? Or how do you create something that has a life cycle? So you can go through, it has a state, all that stuff. So any kind of use case somebody has, we'd love to pick that up and we'll build it as an example for everybody to see how to do that on the BSV blockchain the best. Because we're also, we have to be honest here, it's a little bit harder to build on the BSV blockchain than it is on Ethereum, for instance, with the account-based system.
Yeah, for sure.
But the account-based system doesn't scale. So that that payoff is, okay, it's easy to build a proof of concept, but you know what, it's going to fall over when it really goes to production. So that's it. So we're trying to help people get across that threshold.
Oh. Well, speaking of thresholds, we had the Teranode, and I'd like to talk about Teranode quite a bit for the next probably half hour, a little more, but and then probably take questions as well. But there were a lot of people that super disappointed that Teranode was not out early summer. You get, I'm sure, daily critics telling you, it's all vaporware. You're all scammers. You two don't actually exist. You're just, puppets with somebody's hand up your rear end or whatever. But what's the what? And it's funny asking this because I'm one of the few people that has any access to this at all, given that Gorilla Pool's like testing the software. So I'm sitting here with like 9 months of experience, like actually tinkering with the damn thing and having people ask me all the time, you're full of crap. It doesn't actually exist. But what is the state of things? Like, how do you guys feel about its status? Like when, and I'm not asking you for a date, but maybe a quarter or an era in our lives. Like how many more haircuts are you going to get before Teranode is publicly released?
It's actually the reason Siggy still has a beard, right?
There we go.
So you'll know when the beard is gone. No, that's not true.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So the original plan that we started 2 years ago. I think the project started April 2023, and it really got starting about in the summer of 23. So it's a little bit more than 2 years ago. And then we set out this plan that we would release at the end of Q1 this year. And we worked really, really, really hard to get there, but we didn't make it quite. So why is that? There's many reasons for that. One of the reasons is that we made some mistakes. and we had to correct them. And so we had to make some architectural changes in what we're doing. And they're on the surface, we can describe that in 1 or 2 words what those changes are, but they're actually very impactful in the whole node. And we decided to do that because we didn't want to release something that wasn't good enough. And we're kind of still picking up the pieces from that. So we were hoping that we would get at the end of Q2 and be able to release it there. But we set some quality metrics for ourselves before we release it, and we're not reaching them just yet. And we're very, very, very close. And I'm actually here. I'm sometimes looking at the side here because I have a screen here of the Terra test network running on. We have Teranodes. We actually have our own test network running now, and we have all the developers are now encouraged to run their own node and mine against each other and compete to get Terra testnet coins. And we're going to be opening that to more people in the coming weeks. And that's going really well. So it looks really good. So I would like to say end of the week, end of next week. That's the time frame we're looking at. We're not looking at quarters anymore. We're actually looking at weeks, but we want to make sure that when we give this to people, that you don't launch it and immediately falls over because there's something. And just to give you a little bit of historic background of that. So the first thing that we did, which took almost a year, was just to prove out to our sponsors and to everybody in the world that this is actually possible, that you can actually do 1 million transactions a second on a UTXO-based blockchain. And we thought really hard about it. How do we do that? We had to basically rethink how this works. It works very differently than the other nodes like SV node and then BTC Core and all these nodes. Trying to be more efficient at scale, especially at scale. At 1 TPS, it doesn't matter, but on 1 million TPS, Teranode will kick ass. But proving that out, we also called it a proof of concept. We didn't do everything that needed to be done on the edge cases. So it was a test that proved out that you can throw transactions at something, you can process them safely, you can put them into blocks, you can propagate those blocks, you can validate those blocks, and you can have a network of multiple nodes working all together. That's absolutely fine. Now, that's great, and that worked. We ran that for 2 weeks, and everything worked. Now what happens when you pull the plug on one of those things? Bad things happen. All of a sudden, services are out of sync. The request that was going from one service to another, something happens in between. And then you get context being canceled. And then one flag is set, other flag is not set. That's the kind of nasty details that we've been bathing in for the whole year. It's the unhappy path. If nothing goes wrong, the thing runs like crazy, no problem. But it's about, so what we're actually doing now is hardening everything. How does the data get stored properly? How do we, so two-phase commits and things, all that kind of stuff. And that's not going to be anything. Hopefully, we'll still have to see, because we're also setting up our second scaling test network at the same time. So we'll be doing that later this year as well, proving that we can still do 1 million transactions a second. But it's a lot of nasty details like that. So we've been in the mud this whole year, fixing bugs and fixing issues and searching for these concurrency issues, because anybody that knows anything about computer science is concurrency is the hardest problem there is. And we don't just have a network consortium of all these nodes that are happening, sending each other transactions, doing things everything's happening at the same time, but that's also inside the node, because you have all these microservices and everything's moving around. What we proved last year is still there. We're just filling in all the blanks that we missed that do not negate that what we actually did works. It's just like I say, right. It's literally when we had this one problem when there's somebody sending a transaction to a Teranode and then stops the connection. That thing sometimes breaks in the microservices chain in a certain way that the UTXO store is a bit confused. We cannot have that. Right. Ever. So we need to fix that. That we cannot release something like that.
Is it because
easy fix, but it's very difficult to find.
So in that situation, is it because it's in some subtrees but not others, and then they're not communicating, because they communicate cryptographically, as I understand it, but
no, it's so like one of the last things that we had is what we do, because you use the Aerospike database as UTF-8 store. And Aerospike is awesome. It's incredibly fast. It's basically, the database has the speed of the underlying disks that you have. So if you have a really fast disk, that thing will just ingest enormous amounts of data. It's absolutely fine. But the records in Aerospike are limited to 8 megabytes. And we have transactions on chain that go up to 320 megabytes. Because
sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Kurt. So that's why the testing on mainnet was so important. We're continuously running, block downloads, or initial block downloads on mainnet to check all these everything that's going on, just make sure everything goes. And so what happens when a 320 megabyte transaction comes in is that we store a lot of metadata about that transaction in that record, and then we store the transaction itself externally on a file system. Right? So we can always get it. It's an exception. We don't do that very often, to store it externally. But those are two different operations: storing in the database and storing in the file system. And if nothing happens, everything's fine. Everything works perfectly. We go 1 million transactions a second and process all that stuff, no problem. But if something does actually happen in that 0.1 millisecond that you're doing this operation, it finishes the one thing and not the other. And now you have like this split brain situation. And if you don't handle that situation properly, you get into trouble. The solution is actually fairly easy, but just finding that and thinking that. So there are those kind of concurrency issues that we're looking for, and that we're testing very hard for this ourselves, or we're thrashing it on our Terra testnet, as we call it. And continuously testing it on mainnet. So our third brother, Ole, he is actually a head of provisioning. I think he's called head of infrastructure. It's
integrity, I think.
Yeah, he's our infrastructure guy, and he's been running I think 6 or 7 Teranodes continuously the whole year. He's running 2 testnets, 4 or 5 mainnets, and now he's running also multiple Teranodes on Terra testnet, and that's been invaluable for us. All the craziness, and especially, I'm glad that I heard that you, Kurt, you got involved with Tree Chat, because shout out to you guys for being a great app, but double spends, please. Well, actually, let's put it this way: thank you for giving us so many test cases to test double spend in Teranode, because it's been an absolute nightmare. That we've sent things on the network that we never expected, but it has gotten us to harden it a lot more than we thought was necessary.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So, one of those things, the way things have been developed, you guys have an internal team. It's been a lot of internal, hey, like, we got to engineer this thing, we got to start to implement it, all this. You go through security audits and various rounds of QA. This is, in contrast to your typical crypto native, GitHub, GitHub fanboy that just wants everything in the universe to be developed in public, right? And then they get to ask their friends, and you get, anons or basically anybody contributing ideas and all this stuff. I'm curious, a year from now, do you see the Teranode GitHub being a robust place that maybe has 20 or 30 people that are contributing independently, and like that's where it gets iterated, or what do you think that process looks like, something like a year from now?
Absolutely. We want preferably earlier. So we're working on a program now to open our open source program, let's call it that way, to try to get other people to get involved in all the developments that we do, of all the libraries, overlays, and including Teranode. Teranode will be the same way. It will be an open project on GitHub, and we encourage anybody to get involved. It will be, unfortunately, it will be a similar thing to something like BTC Core. That will be a couple of gatekeepers that make sure that nothing crazy gets in there, because as I said, we're dealing with people's money, we're dealing with value, so we have to be get very, very good reviews, but everybody's welcome to join in, and we encourage that. But to address that question that's probably going to come later, the reason we haven't done that yet is because our assumption was that would not be helpful, because we will only get the haters that will get in the way and try to mess with us.
Sure.
Next to the fact that we were figuring out how to do this. I think we sometimes felt like it was 2008 and Satoshi was trying to figure out how to make this bloody thing work. And I think the word bloody is actually, that was something that he used a lot. Might be an Australian, I don't know. That's perhaps. I don't know. The English also use bloody a lot as well. But we were in the same way. We're trying to do something nobody's done before. Everybody thinks this is impossible. Blockchains don't scale. So having all these people that don't believe in or are not part of our project actually looking in and trying to, that would just create so much noise that would probably just slow us down. Is that the right decision or not? I don't know, but that's the decision that was taken. And we decided to do this. It was basically, the decision was taken. We have to give the team freedom, and we have to give them the safety to do this and try this out and get them away from all the noise. And I think that's actually the reason why we got there. We had a lot of fun in the beginning. We had a lot of fun in the first couple of months, and we had something working. Then we had a lot of pain to get to the POC. And there was we had to make some changes there as well. And then for next year, we're just filling in the blanks. And now we're getting to a point where I think the development team would love to be done with it.
So that leads me to another question. This can be a two-parter. Because again, the critics like to say that the character who goes by Light SV or Light BSV on X is either A, not a real person, or B, is somebody's sock account. I actually know the answer to this, but I'm gonna let you respond to it. But so is he human? Is he his own sovereign human being with his own thoughts and wants and needs in the world? And then also, how big is the Teranode team? And how closely are you working together? Like when I ask about the team, how many people are working on it on, say, a daily basis versus people that might come in 2-3 days a month or something to contribute something?
Let me just look it up for you, just to make sure I get the right number.
Yeah.
There's 19 people now involved.
Okay.
And I think we're about 13 people that are full-time, and the rest of them are part-time helping.
I might still be in that Slack channel, and I'm not active anymore.
So Aus did help in the beginning. Yeah, he's actually. No, you're not in there anymore. You're not one of the 19.
Good.
No,
and Light BSV is a real person, very much so. Yes, you know the answer, Kurt.
Actually, he started posting a lot just about the time that ChatGPT 3.5 came out. So,
so we never know.
Keeping it a mystery.
Keeping it a mystery. No, he's definitely a real person. He is part of the Teranode team, but I'm not going to dox him. He needs to do that himself.
Yeah, for sure. He's and actually good people. I know him quite well, so I always think it's fun. I love reading the conspiracy theories about the people, especially when I know them and like have had a dinner with them or something, and just like, wow, this is novel.
Can I say something to that? That's always very funny, because I remember when it wasn't part of the BSVA, there was or association, there was a lot of stuff being written, on Twitter at the time and all these things, and you don't know what's right, you don't know what's wrong, and then you're inside the association, and then you see what's being written about you, and you say, like, where the hell are the people getting this? This is nothing. There's no evil intentions. There's no psychopaths or narcissists. We kick them all out. There's who
are they? Yeah.
There are no bad intentions. And then somebody writes something about, association doing this or that. And that's like, where the hell I couldn't even come up with this. They wanted to create a lie. What the hell's going on? So there's a lot of nonsense out there as well. I imagine some of it is not that ill-intentioned. It's just people that are misunderstanding something, maybe some frustrations about what's going on. I can understand that. Maybe we need to be a lot more open about what we're doing, and that's what we're going to try to do in the second half of this year. But please believe when we tried, and maybe I should just bring it up just to read it for you. So I was thinking about this earlier as well, is that what we tried at the beginning of the year, we decided to say we're going to make this a purpose-driven organization. And what does that actually mean? That means that we're not here to pump the price. We're not here to do it in crazy things. We're actually here for a purpose. And the purpose of the BSV Association that we talk internally to everybody is about to foster an open and collaborative BSV ecosystem, creating awareness on the unique capabilities of BSV blockchain, and thereby enabling the real-world adoption of BSV blockchain. That's verbatim. That's what we're doing. That's everything we do has to fall up into that. And so we have a couple of teams on there: an education team, an outreach team, technology team, marketing team, and they all have their purpose that is built from that purpose, and that's what we're trying to do. And maybe the reason we haven't been very vocal to the outside is because we're working very hard on fixing things on the inside. Especially just me getting Teranode and overlay services done. So when we can release those, we can do a lot more. But it's all people with good intentions trying to just make this work.
Yeah, it's been my experience too. Even like in eras when there were people. I don't have an equal relationship with every person who was ever in the BSVA, but some people I got along with really well, and other people clearly didn't, maybe even like me personally. And so I think that right now, not only has BSVA been a lot more productive and open, but I actually think it is genuinely the right people for the job are in most of the places that I can think of where they should be. But you mentioned overlay services and some of these other tools that have been built, the SDKs and some of these other things over the last year or so. And it always leads me to this question. I think I actually bounced this off of you, Siggy, a week or two ago, last time we spoke, and said, can somebody walk me through the right way to implement an application or something? Because we still, to this day, we have like major wallets in the BSV space that go out of sync and stay out of sync for weeks at a time, because like they're still running their business the way that they would have run it in 2014 or 15. Like you spin up a full node, you place it in the cloud, and you query all UTXOs, and you serve those to your clients. And like that is, it's funny because it really hasn't worked very well in BSV for the better part of a decade at this point, but they still kind of go along that way. And that's for, reasons of cost or reasons of, maybe IT competence or something. But it might also be that, hey, there's just not that many people on Earth that can even conceptualize how to do scalable blockchain from an infrastructure standpoint. Like if you were to put out an ad and say, hey, I need a sysadmin for my UTXO-based blockchain company, and you have to have experience working with a chain that can do 1 million TPS, right? Like that is actually 0 people on the planet right now. And so I think all of us, BSV wide, we need to have an answer for, well, how do I start my bit? Like, where should I start? So I'm curious if somebody were to ask you and say, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I've got a couple successful startups. I work in tech. Like maybe I've got, my own software dev business. How the heck do I port something really cool to BSV? Where should I start? Where should I learn the architectural stuff, the deep, the low level, just so we don't start to build something on a bad foundation from the get-go?
I think we still have quite a lot of work to do to set that up. And what you said about the overlay services is it's a simple way of saying that I think 2 years ago a massive program started to basically build up a new vision of how to do things on chain, and it's all based on SPV, and so these overlays are just a part of that. But there's so many other parts in that as well. There's all kinds of lookup services and storage services, and there's this whole decentralized ecosystem of things that you need to work that to do that properly, and that's what's being built. And that is a very complex new concept. It's a completely new concept that you wouldn't find anywhere else. So it's very difficult to find any kind of metaphors or something that is similar. It's like this. No, it's nothing like this. It's something completely different. And so we're working on at the moment to finish that up. That's not completely finished, but there's still work ongoing. We have some people that are helping us with the documentation of that, and we're going to start. We're also going to start a program with the education department to educate, to do exactly what we said, to teach people how these things all work, what are the different components, how they work, and how can I use them, how do they work together. But I think the most important thing to get companies like to get the heart of your question is the POCs that we're doing. So the example application. So you'll have an example application if you want to do this thing go look at the example application. And most of the times those applications are actually just a couple of lines of code. Seriously, they're not that much, or there's maybe 30 lines of code, because everything else is in services that are actually already offered by the ecosystem that you might have to pay something for, or you can run those services yourselves and do it for free. But writing these applications is going to be much, much easier. So demo applications, POCs, is probably the best way. If somebody wants to start now, reach out to us, and we will either point you directly ourselves, if it isn't documented yet, to the demo application, or we will write one for you.
Or connect you with the commercial entity that can offer those services to you, right? That is already in the ecosystem. And I think that's also, there's one aspect of your question that I want to briefly tackle, and it goes back to the business versus tech first. If you're an entrepreneur wanting to do something with blockchain, I learned this from Siggy, is ask yourself 5 times why. Why do you need blockchain? Do you really need blockchain, or can a central database do the same? Blockchain is not going to be the solution to your problem. It's going to add value to your business. And if it does, awesome. And then we're here for you. But you do really need to it needs to be meaningful. And there's a couple of really cool use cases out there where, even if you look at the intersection of AI and blockchain, where it becomes truly meaningful as sort of an integrity layer and layer of trust of everything that's going on in the AI or LLMs out there. So I think that's also really important to ask yourself that question first, rather than just diving into blockchain.
I think it's good to give an example. I can give an example of that.
Well, I know one. So I'm not sure how much I can say about it, but essentially it's an intersection of IoT, AI, and blockchain, which is really amazing, where a lot of people, when I think of AI and blockchain, they think about the integrity of the models or the micropayments towards using of the things that you own. But one example that there's a company, it's Record, and they use AI and blockchain just as the integrity layer. And the cool thing about that is AI is making decisions autonomously. This is all being tracked on devices. And because there's no human involved, blockchain really acts as this layer of trust. So if this AI would ever make a mistake, there's a liability issue. And because you have that integration with blockchain, you have that covered. So this proof of liability, or proof of record, or proof of truth, is where the blockchain value comes in. And we're actually now, I'm opening up some connections to talk to more people in the insurance business, because I think that's such a great opportunity to really showcase the true value of blockchain, and also where it really has commercial value, right? You can actually, your premiums will go down, essentially.
Yeah. It's funny. I wrote my predictions for 2025, came out in December of 2024. And my one of the big ones was that somebody somewhere is going to put an LLM in charge of too much of something, and it's going to like do some catastrophic thing. I'm going to force everybody to have to say like, whoa, where did it get that data? How do, someone's going to cause like $1 billion problem somewhere by putting ChatGPT in instead of using, sterile data, essentially. So I'm glad to hear that's something that other people are also thinking about. But so a little bit of a personal anecdote. I don't typically talk to my wife about my work. She knows what I do. We'll talk, about it vaguely, but I only let her know how my day went if I've had a really, really good day or a really, really bad day. And I'm curious if each of you, maybe you guys could take one or the other, or maybe both, but when was the last, what was the thing that gave you a really, really good day or a really, really bad day in, say, the last 2 or 3 months?
I already gave my example of the good day. That was when the student in Peru basically handed in his final project and literally built it within 2 days. And then for me, I had this big eureka moment. It was basically the proof of the pudding that everything we've been doing for the past month is worth it. Right? It's the replicability, and it's a bit the scalability thing, right? The distributed application, by having it open, anyone can now pick that up and build a similar use case and commercialize that. We would never commercialize that, but just opening it up, that for me was fantastic. And my wife can vouch for me. I was super happy when that day, and I was very proud. Yeah,
awesome.
I'm a little bit of grumpy old man, I think. The good stuff, I forget the good stuff. I actually forget both the good stuff and the bad stuff very quickly. I don't dwell on it. But I'm always thinking about what's the next problem to solve. So I think the when Teranode did million TPS for 2 weeks, and we were seeing that when they were both at the LBC, that was a very happy moment. But I completely crashed after that. I think I took a month off and went to Iceland. It was just exhausting. I had to have to reach that apex, but then it's gone and next. So my wife is actually much more involved continuously, because a lot of the calls that I'm doing, and she's probably listening in now, so she knows what's happening. And so we talk about this all the time. So yeah, hi.
Right, yeah. Tell her I said hi.
But I think it's something like this. You need to have. It's not the word grit, but you have to be kind of stupid in the way that just continue and continue and continue and continue and continue. Whatever happens, if it's a good thing, you probably have a bad thing tomorrow. You have to continue. You have a bad thing, you have to get up next day and continue. And I think that's and it's important to have the support of the family there as well, and to be able to talk to somebody, because it is hard. It is hard to do new things. I think there's a lot of people that talk about startups. And it's really, really hard to set up a company, but I think it's the same thing with something like this. This is really hard to do this. There's always something that's going wrong or something that can go wrong, so we have to think about that. Yeah. Hope that answers your question.
I saw somebody in the comments asked near the beginning of the show, like, is there anything about being Icelandic that you think gives you the right sort of temperament? I think it's a little bit of a funny question, but maybe not. I mean, Iceland is a small place, a small group of people, and so there probably is a pretty tight cultural element to solving those kinds of problems or whatever else. But I would love to hear if you think that there's anything unique about being Icelandic that gives you guys an edge.
It's the no nonsense. It's just 1,000 years of survival mode. There's no political games involved. It's just pure surviving on fish and potatoes and not being exiled to Greenland. No, I think it's that it's like there's no hierarchy in Iceland. So the president goes by the first name, and I think that direct personal touch, the no nonsense, just try to get things done, and that's sort of the culture we want to instill. I have to give a caveat though, like we all grew up in Holland, right? So we're Icelandic by name and in our heart and in the passport. But I think that in our two cases, we also have a bit of the Dutch direct, really no nonsense mentality that mixes it up and makes it a nice mix.
That might be a double dose, like getting the Dutch frankness about it. But I get the same thing. I'm like 2/3 German and about a bit Norse too. It's Swedish and Danish probably, but I'm American, and so like my core personality stuff is very American, despite the fact that you guys and me probably share some genetic ancestor back there somewhere. But
I always think that the people that actually went to Iceland and lived there like 1,000 years ago, they must have been special. They must have been really stubborn, because it's a rock in the middle of the ocean, and it's very windy. The winters can be so harsh. And 1,000 years ago, you didn't have your nice house and your heating and all that stuff. So only the tough survived, and only the stubborn went there. So it's maybe that some of that is still in us.
Yeah. So let's start to wrap it up. I would love to hear like a final word, or is there something that you really wanted to express that maybe I haven't led us to? What's something that you want people to know about your work or Teranode or what's going on at BSVA? And you guys can fight over who gets to have the first last word and the last word.
Well, I think one of the things that we want to, I think I'll just clear up is that, like I said earlier, we're doing this for the ecosystem. And there's a lot of, let's just say there's a lot of pain in our organization for what happened over the last, 10 years. And we believe in certain things, and then scalable blockchain, utility blockchain, and that narrative is totally against us. I had a conversation with a Gartner analyst some time ago, and whatever you think of that, but it's interesting to see that I think you said that earlier, Kurt. Businesses have just given up on blockchain. They don't believe in it anymore. It's like blockchain. your blockchain, I'm not going to talk to you. It's that bad. And so we're a little bit careful, maybe, as an organization, and we don't want to be. We want to be much more open, and we're going to be that, and we're working on that. We're working on that with all the internal parties involved that need to do that. And we want everybody to be involved. We want to have a more collaborative ecosystem where the libraries and the software, including Teranode, that we maintain. So we are like the responsible maintainers of that, but do get input from everybody, and everybody gets involved. That's what we want to go. But we are coming from a place where that not really the case, so we need to move into that. So please bear with us for a little bit while we get our shit in order and get there.
Love it. House?
And it goes back to your point. Have we already seen the golden vision? And I think we're just really getting started. Right? The association, we have this new slogan, "Together Towards Better," and it's just a brand, it's just a slogan for the critics. But at the end of the day, it's also a way of thinking, right? It's the way we as an association want to present ourselves to the outside. Like working together, we have become members of different trade associations, Blockchain for Europe, Digital Chamber in the US for public policy. We're working together with technological partners. We're getting more universities involved. We want to get closer involved with the ecosystem. So we're here really in a sort of supporting role to make BSV successful. And if be it educational, developers, hackathons, there's so many things that are out there. We have limited resources. We're doing our very, very best. There's only so much we can do, but the door is always open, and we're very happy and proud and privileged to be able to support this, because let's be honest, it's amazing that there's a scalable Bitcoin out there that can do 1 million TPS, and we're very grateful for that, and now just need to sort of make sure that the promise of Bitcoin and the promise of scalable blockchain is then really become a reality by businesses adopting it and seeing the true value of it. And if we can play a small part in that together with the ecosystem, be it existing companies or new companies discovering blockchain or discovering BSV, we're here. So yeah, very excited and very grateful, and I think we should just do this more often.
Yeah, absolutely. To that, I every time I have a good show with good people, I'm like, man, it kind of sucks that we live 10,000 miles away from each other, because I think there is that little bit of rapport that is, it's fun to go get dinner, excuse me, and go get dinner with people after you work together and solve a big problem, especially working on something for 2 years, and my team, we're all in the US, right? And we get to work with you guys sort of tangentially, but it's always like, man, I hope we all make it to London or whatever for conferences and that kind of thing, so we can hang out at least a little bit. But looking forward to that. Gentlemen, I imagine I'll see you in London in October. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
We'll be there.
Good stuff. All right. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Kurt.
All right. Take care, guys. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I think, you know what, let's skip the comment of the week stuff. My voice, as you can hear, is already starting to go. So let's wrap it up. We'll give away something big next week. So please tune back in. We'll have more of a game show next week, but I'm feeling like this is just a good place to chill out. So everybody, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert bell. Thank you to Rock Wallet for everything you do with us and for us. And also to Otherworldly TCG and the folks at Brain Rot Games who sponsor the shows and help us make all this stuff happen. And of course, thank you to you, the subscribers and the people who watch. I implore you all, please be good to each other. If we can't be good to each other, then kind of the rest of this is all a bit of nonsense anyways. Like, this stuff exists so that we can communicate better, do business better together, and ultimately, what was it? Better together? We'll look up that quote, the new tagline over at BSVA too. But everybody, I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. bidding you farewell. Thank you again, and I will see you next week.